Alright, so this is the 2013 Chevy Equinox, and it does have the 2.4 liter Ecotech that is in the process of being removed at the moment. So I was kind of hoping that I could make a series explaining to everyone out there who has one of these motors the process I went through and how to deal with it. Because basically, what happened was this car belongs to my mom. She was going to get groceries or whatever she was doing, and an engine light came on. The car started to run rough, and it dumped all its oil all over the ground. It's probably still leaking because it ran all the way down. The car had no oil, but you can still see where it's dripping. So, as I find out, water gets up in the intake and in these valves and in the valve cover and freezes, which keeps the crankcase from venting. And that causes your rear main seal to pop out. And so I thought this was a once in a blue moon kind of a thing until I started to do some research. And it turns out almost all of these motors who live in cold weather climates and I don't know, over 100,000 miles seem to have this exact same issue. And GM is fully aware. I'm sure if you have this car, you've found the service bulletin. I think the number was 14882. I'll put a picture in or something. And think, oh, so my car's covered. Well, that's what I thought at least, but that does not seem to be the case. After fighting with GM, the local dealerships in towns near me, they basically said, your car's not covered, despite it fitting within the special coverage extension that's shown there. So, after getting in touch with GM, they said they're not going to help. You're on your own. And the car just turned over 100,000 miles, so it is just now out of its extended warranty. I mean, almost to the month it happened, which is super sketchy, but who am I to say? So, basically, thankfully, I have access to the equipment I need in my shop to replace this rear main seal myself, but most other people who have this problem aren't that lucky. And they end up either being screwed out of thousands of dollars in repair costs or screwed out of a car entirely if you can't afford that. So, hopefully, this helps someone, saves you a little time. I think there's a class action lawsuit out there against GM, and I'll see if I can't include a link or something. And maybe if enough people sign it, we may get something back from them, but, or not. They may just say screw you like they did to me. So, I'm fairly confident this is the last new GM car I'm gonna buy that doesn't have a small block in it. So, like I said, I hope that we'll make a series of how to take this motor out, and maybe even how to take it out without a lift if I get that far. So, people at home who have this issue can have a little information, because there seems to be no information out here other than people just saying they've had this problem and GM won't help. So maybe I can do my part and help these poor screwed over GM owners. Buy Ford next time. Alright, so I've never replaced a rear main seal on a motor like this, so it's gonna be muddling through for everyone, I think, but we'll see how this goes. All I've done so far is taken out the battery, sat the computer off to the side, taken off the intake box and the air cleaner box, undid some sensors, and pulled the spark plugs. The reason I pulled the spark plugs was just trying to discern how healthy the motor is and if it was worth replacing or not while I had it out. But it seems to be plenty healthy despite being run out of oil. Thankfully, when she was driving the car, she kept a level head and shut it right off, even though there was no oil warning light. Which seems to be something that happens in all of these cases. No oil warning light, which seems to be something you ought to sue GM over. Maybe somebody rich enough who's watching this movie will stick it to the man for us. Probably not, but who knows. So that's what I've done so far, and everything's straightforward. The air cleaner box that sits right here is just a hose clamp there, a hose clamp here. Then the actual air filter housing is just 2 bolts. The mass airflow sensor comes off right there, and you just pull the whole thing out. The way I understand it is the motor has to be dropped out from underneath on jack stands, and then you can raise the car up around the motor, and the engine cradle with transmission and everything. Then once that's done, pull the motor away from the transmission, replace your rear main seal, put it all together, stick it back up, and pray to God in heaven it does not leak. So, I suppose I will get started. Alright, so all I did now was pull out the battery tray. I just took out the few bolts it had. It had 3 bolts down there, then one that clamped the AC on right here. They were, the 3 of those were 13s and the 2 others were 10s. I'm thinking the next thing to do is to take this tray out and this mounting out, and hopefully that'll give me access to, or start to give me access to, all the wiring that's going to have to come away from the motor, so we don't rip the harness in half when we're taking this thing out. Okay, again with the light, the main ground right here goes to that little tiny stud right there below the water pump. That nut I just threaded back on there. So hopefully I will remember this later, but it is that one right. Wow, that's hard to get to. I can't even get the camera to see it. Imagine me trying to fit my hand down in there. But got it off, so that's small victories where I can find them.
What are we pointing at?
Whatever you just undid.
Oh yeah, the exhaust is undid.
Indeed it is. 2 bolts, hard to crack loose. We let them soak in PB though. Maybe you should do the same.
And then way up there, undid that guy, and the bolt, you have to take the bolt all the way out and then hammer the shaft off of it. If you don't take the bolt out, it won't come off because there's a groove.
And then the steering shaft should drop down with the rest of the engine cradle without grabbing anything. Fingers crossed, that is correct. Okay, so O2 sensor, second downstream, has been disconnected, as well as the plug into the transmission.
You pull the red thing out, and then the gray piece flops down.
Which is just the dumbest thing ever, but
Why would it be?
nobody accused GM of being smart. Alright, so there is a ground back behind the AC pump. Oh, now it's dark. Oh my gosh, now I can't even see. Okay, right there, but you can't get to it until you take the AC pump off. Thankfully, they had the foresight to make the starter wire go, or the alternator wire just go straight to the starter. So thank them for that, but you do definitely have to take the AC pump off unless you just plan on cutting that wire and attaching it later. But thankfully, since we don't have the tools, equipment, nor know how to do the air conditioner, we're just gonna set the pump off to the side, and hopefully it'll stay happily there. Removing the dumb fuel line involves using one of these tools to then press inside and clip this piece off. Press it in like that and you push the fuel line off itself. It is a total pain to do.
We had to push the fuel line all the way down and then put the tool on.
Yeah, and after struggling with that for far too long, longer than I'd like to admit, it looks like the fuel line is off. And interestingly enough, it seems like this is a returnless fuel line setup unless there's a fuel regulator down by the pump. I mean, who knows? So, I don't really care. Okay, so I guess the next thing to take off is going to be those 2 heater core lines, which are just 2 little hose clamps right down there. And the power steering, or the coolant reservoir, not power steering, it's electric power steering. As irritating as that is, but this line has to come off here, and this line also has to come off. I think I'll try and take it loose from the water neck down there, and then just pull the box out the less clutter, the easier this may be. Alright, more interesting wiring I didn't notice before. There is a ground strap right there, right on that bolt, which is going to have to come off. Also, there's this sensor right here, which I believe, that one there, which I believe is the cam positioning sensor, although I'm not 100% on that. And then there is another sensor, which is, I guess, protected from the exhaust by that little plastic piece right down there, and that just moves away. Get a better light. Okay, trying this again with better visibility. You can see where I moved that plastic piece, and if you look down there, there is a sensor, that yellow and brown wire. I'm not sure what it's for, but it obviously has got to come off. Oops. Wow, I almost died. That was cool. Alright, so the transmission shift linkage, we just undid that nut right there marked with the red, and we'll probably just take off this mounting bracket right here, and then just with those two bolts, then just drop the engine out from underneath it.
And then we held the lever with the adjustable wrench and a screwdriver.
Right. Wherever you can see that. This car's a mess. He's just wire tying that up, which is the way the master techs at GM would have done it, obviously.
I don't know.
Look, you're even wearing your master tech shirt today.
I am wearing my master tech shirt.
Okay, so this ground right here, right there, has to come off, and it runs down into what it looks like is the power steering, but I don't know. But it seems to be attached to the engine cradle, so I'm just going to undo it there and hopefully remember to attach it before we start the car. Alright, documentation. So the car is coming away from the motor. Woohoo! Hey Trevor, how would you do this job in your driveway?
You don't.
Yeah, God help you if you don't have the lift. Oh my gosh. Alright, so more documentation of the things that caused us problems on this removal. We even broke it, which is cool. So, how exactly would you take it apart? Telling your future self.
Oh yeah, telling future self.
Or past self, whatever.
Jam screwdriver in there until this piece of plastic breaks open, like so. And then, once you have that, you can pull the little red piece out and actually squeeze the clip down. And then break the other one off because you're never getting to it.
Yeah, we broke it, which is cool, but...
It's supposed to squeeze like the other one. It's supposed to squeeze on the top, but that didn't happen. It just broke.
Whatever. In future GM engineers ought to, just use pull tabs, but that's too hard, I guess, or too easy? I don't know. Too easy. Well, that's the problem. Little bitty carbon plugged up the whole thing because we decided we're going to have that, bleed off pressure or whatever they decided. GM is a bunch of idiots, but check this out. Direct injection. I don't know if you can even see that. Maybe we should get a better light. I think it's over there on the knick-knack shelf. That's what it's called. That is its official name. But the valves are just disgusting. You wouldn't believe this motor only had 100,000 miles on it. Oh, look at that. Direct injection valves. Ew. 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 Gross. Alright, so more documentation here. We have separated the motor and transmission. You can get at the torque converter bolts right through here for the starter, and you just undo the bell housing bolts and pull them apart. But this was our problem. Right there. Rear main seal has come out all the way up to here. Popped right out. So that's awesome. All of this work for this tiny piece of rubber.
Alright, so to help to prevent this from happening again, we got a plastic T from O'Reilly's. It pushed this guy out, so there's a T, and off the T we put this rubber line with a check valve in it so that it can blow pressure out, but it can't suck air in, because we don't want it sucking air in, because then that'll not be what it won't be the mass airflow sensor reading it. If you wanted to suck air in through here, you'd have to route this into the air box right here. It'd have to be after the mass airflow sensor for it to work and not trigger a check engine light or something. But so hopefully, I mean, we blew in it and air comes out there, but you can't really suck air in through it, so it ought to be pretty good and keep it from happening again. Crank it.
Oh, this is in the worst possible.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't see any explosions yet. Any warning lights?
Stability track? What is stability?
Stability, I don't know, we don't care about that. So a little valve isn't sucking air in, which is good. What? I can only think it's, well, it's coming out the passenger side. I can only assume it's all the PB we sprayed on the exhaust. I mean, it doesn't smell like electrical fire. It sounded a little rattly whenever it first started, but it seems fine now.
Yeah, I didn't like the
No leaks though.
Pro. What does the service stability track mean?
I think that's the things we unplugged for the wheels or something. The little.
No, it said that before we even started.
Oh, I have no idea then. But see, it's not sucking air through here, which is good.
No, it sounds quiet. Okay.
Why is the ABS light on?
That's what I'm saying. That's why it says service stability track. Whatever, it happened before we even started. I first noticed it when we were pushing it onto the lift.
Oh. Well, who knows? I don't. I'm just happy the little check valve's working.
Why does the valve train have to be so loud?
I don't know. Because it's stressed. It's very stressed. Mustang.